That's clearly product placement.
All right. Oh, I guess we are broadcasting live now. Welcome to what should be the 25th Brothers WISP. Greg is not here. He's usually the one that records it on Skype and then does some fancy wizardry behind the scenes and makes us look a little better. But we got tired of waiting for everybody to show up, so we've got Alex, Justin Miller, and Tomas. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
And who are you?
I remain unnamed.
Okay, right unnamed.
So have any of you been doing anything exciting recently? I guess you're all boring.
Yeah, pretty boring. I've been setting up a new corp network, doing some GRE tunnels, messing around with IPsec on the CCR.
Yeah,
learning about some issues there, but
yeah, and you had some issues with that MikroTik. Should we say that there was a bit of latency there in them agreeing that there was an issue?
yeah, standard support thing going back and forth. First they won't admit there's an issue, but they came around. Still waiting for the support to take a look at the setup, but I don't know. Optimistic they'll figure out the issue with the driver and get it fixed.
Yeah, they've been a lot better recently with sorting things out once they admit there's a problem. So, yeah, should take care of it. And how's Miller on the other side of the country?
I'm doing okay. I've been doing a lot of Amazon Web Services and monitoring, and a lot of free radius stuff, working with free radius proxies and that kind of thing lately, and still working with Observium, and they just introduced custom OID probes not too long ago, so I've been messing with those.
Wasn't that like, you know?
They were dead set against it, but
yeah,
now they have it. So
yeah, like I thought, like 6 months ago, that was like, you know, them allowing a whore to, you know, do her services in church, and now it seems to be okay.
Well, from their point of view, why would someone do some custom work and set up some custom stuff only for that one particular person, whereas they could do custom, or they could program it so that everyone could take advantage of it automatically? That's really part of the argument, I think, for that. And it's not as good. It's not as nice. So.
Yeah. So then, is the new custom OID stuff, is that not as full featured as their included stuff?
Well, you don't have as much control. Like, so I was monitoring signal strength, and as we know, it's the exact opposite of a normal graph, and there's no way that I know of to flip it so that, you know, higher signals are higher on the graph. So, no, that's that kind of stuff. That it's not truly as powerful
Okay,
or
so
as nice, but it's, you know, they'll get around to it eventually.
it's something versus nothing.
Right.
All right, let's step in the right direction.
So you're not able to do simple operations like multiply the value by -1 to get the graph to look right? That's too bad. I know in Zabbix that's a pretty easy thing to do. I assume the same in NetXMS.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, Tomas, I assume that you've been doing interesting things. You're always doing something interesting that none of the rest of us seem to be able to do. Other than the new NetXMS 2 going non-RC, what have you been up to?
Well, I finished 2 kind of big projects recently. One was a big provisioning system for a multi-thousand MikroTik device network. And again, it's all based on NetXMS, but it's actually a fully automatic backup provisioning, monitoring, and management system all in one in a single interface. So, as I mentioned, all centered around NetXMS. And I actually finished that project in the middle of December. And it's been working fairly well. And then I did a second project, which was again based around NetXMS, which was a multi-tenant kind of a provisioning as a service system. And I've been playing a lot with Raspberries and deploying a bunch of Raspberries, and actually been playing with some new technologies like Docker and stuff like that. And I guess that's pretty much it from here.
Yet I have almost an immediate like negative reaction to whenever there's this new big fancy thing, like Docker's been the thing for like a year or so, and people get all excited about Docker, and I'm just like, I hate Docker. I don't know anything about Docker. But
we're not talking about pants, are we?
No, not so much the pants, more the containerized virtualization system, if I understand it correctly. But
actually, it's Veils. We are talking about Veils.
That,
the Docker logo is a whale, anyway.
But yeah, like Docker and SDN and NFV and a bunch of other things, everyone talks about them incessantly for months as if they're the hottest thing in the world, when they're not at the time perhaps ripe or ready for all the hype that it's receiving. And so I usually wait until kind of the hype dies down, and then I generally think that the product is actually ready to be used by the masses, and that's when I take a look. I don't have time to.
We've been working a lot with containerization as well, and Docker is kind of the lead for us. What we've been investing most of our time with. It seems to have a lot of promise. I haven't been as involved in the deployment, but I know that's what we're going forward with. So
it's like VPS, basically, Linux VPS.
The idea is that you run an application in a container rather than a VPS. You're running an operating system and all the applications that go along with it. So there's a lot less overhead and a lot less that can go wrong within the container.
So then perhaps more similar then to, say, AppV in the Microsoft world versus, say, OpenVZ or LXC or something like that, where you're containerizing the whole OS.
Similarity is there, but it's kind of different. Basically, it's a means of process separation, realistically, of virtualizing the process itself and separating the process itself from the operating system without actually virtualizing the whole operating system.
So it's like Sandbox on steroids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a couple monitoring systems and working with some IPTV stuff, not like service provider level, just kind of internal to one of my clients, and bring up some more monitoring stuff, and it's all in LXC containers in Proxmox.
Okay.
The latest version of Proxmox moved from OpenVZ, which required like a 2.6 something kernel, to LXC, which is now in mainstream kernels. I think it's like 4.2. So there's a huge jump in the kernel level and capabilities.
Docker is like the next generation of LXC.
Okay. All right. So what's on our list of things to talk about? Somebody wanna what's most interesting out there for? Oh, holy cow! Our list sure has grown.
I've actually been messing around with Graphite backend with Grafana on the front to do some interesting metrics, and I'm actually running those both in Docker. So that's kind of fun.
I guess for the audience, the reason why it kind of died there is one of the other brothers joined into one of our chats, and I think we all saw that and all started to try to talk to him to get him to come to join the video.
Who?
Thrift.
Oh, I don't see him on here. Oh yeah, I see.
But I'm sorry.
The other thing that I've been up to, talking about that Corp network deployment, getting set up on CCRs, making that migration. Been dealing with a lot of 802.1x and actually onboarding devices, which is kind of my first exposure to that sort of thing, and using Aruba and ClearPass. So
yeah, oh, it's like we lost Tomas during all this shuffle. Yeah, I remember that. On this whole thing, you were, you had sold them on the CCR platform because of the, IPsec stuff, and then it was, there's some bugs. You weren't able to get the performance out of it that you were looking for, so you were kind of feeling shaky about the whole project. But it sounds like you're confident enough in being able to solve the CCR driver issues that you're looking at all the other aspects of the operation now.
Right. The main reason to go with the CCRs over x86 was to get the almost line rate IPsec performance from the hardware encryption. And turns out that there are some driver issues where you run into TCP packets being out of order, packet loss, retransmissions, all sorts of quality issues that really affect your throughput with a lot of applications, especially with things like SMB that are real sensitive to that sort of thing. But at the same time, the raw performance is still there. The IPsec on the CCR performs very well, able to push a good 700 plus megabits per second over a GRE tunnel with hardware encryption. Obviously, the downside is with, like I said, with SMB, with all the quality issues, that performance drops like 10x to the point where you're only getting about a few megabytes per second. So that's kind of an issue. When you're using the IPsec tunnels to encrypt between locations where you're using file shares, that's a problem. So hopefully we can get that worked out and get the encryption turned on.
That seems like it'd be a really good platform for doing hardware encryption, point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess taking a look at the list here, looks like as our viewers may have noticed, we had a bunch of video interviews from WISPAPalooza 2.5 months ago now.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, I got all those uploaded fairly quickly, and we weren't able to get everything. Well, I wasn't able to get all the interviews done that I wanted to do. I know there's probably 3 or 4 people that we still owe interviews to that we said we would do and haven't for one reason or another. Usually get busy and forget. But no, Tom.
I would say anybody that's watching it, we'd be interested to hear some feedback. You can leave a comment or something. Let us know what they think of that format. I think if everybody enjoys it, we'll continue forward at other events doing the little interviews and posting those right away.
Yeah, obviously I knew that the audio wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be when I started. Couldn't figure out. I just wasn't plan. I just didn't plan. Didn't want to spend a couple $100 on audio gear to get the audio out of it, and it looks like the on-camera audio was better than I feared, but not as good as I hoped. So if your primary complaint is the crap audio, we'll try harder next time. But
yeah, I think there are some things we can do to work on that. It was the first go around. And I think it was a good start.
But yeah, so definitely give us feedback if you got anything on that. Anything else on this list you guys want to prioritize, or should we start going, or just go down the list?
I don't. Speaking of Vegas, I think we could kind of debrief a little bit on kind of the event as a whole. Aside from the interviews, we didn't have a lot of coverage on that. One of the big reasons why I went was to see the big Ubiquiti announcement, and I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a letdown for me. I was expecting some big news, and they say they're making a big change by going into solar, but I was hoping more for like a competitive product with the CCR 1072 or something along those lines. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, the crowd kind of reflect that disappointment. The show was fully over and people were already leaving. Looks like Mr. Smith found it convenient to join us after.
Sorry about that, guys.
I was giving you a hard time.
Looks like a very intimate fireside chat with you.
Yeah, this is great.
I always wanted to have a fireside chat with you,
Are you late because you were getting the fire going?
It was a hard time. Actually, what happened was I spent the last hour trying to get this fire working.
Right.
But now it's working, so happy days.
And it's a real fire. It's not one of those fake ones. Those electronic.
No, we don't do fake Brothers WISP.
It's not Ulog on YouTube.
But speaking of that, did you guys see that Nick Offerman Ulog video? He's sitting in a chair next to a fireplace, drinking whiskey for 45 minutes. He says nothing. He does nothing other than picking up his glass of whiskey, taking a swig, and setting it back down, and staring at the camera.
Well, one of his best lines he had was, if Hillary Clinton gets voted president, it'll be the first time in history that two American presidents had sex with each other. Never had that before.
That we know of.
That we know of. But it's an important fact.
Sure. Yeah, we were just talking about Vegas and how Alex's whole reason to go was for the Ubiquiti portion and their announcements, and he had some expectations or some hopes, and they kind of crapped on his heart. I guess no pun intended. I didn't even think of it. But what were your thoughts, Mr. Smith, on the Ubiquiti?
I enjoyed the WISPAPalooza. I thought Vegas obviously is nice to go to Vegas. My first time there, and it was good to meet up with the guys again. I was disappointed Thomas couldn't make it. I gave his boss an awful hard time over it, so hopefully he'll get there next year.
I think we all did.
Hopefully you didn't get too much grief, Thomas, about any of the slagging I gave JT. I think that's his name.
Yes, it is.
Sorry, I keep calling him TJ. I think it drives him mad. But no, it was good. I really enjoyed it. It was a different kind of scene to the Mum one, so it was a nice kind of break. But it was interesting the other different manufacturers and their perspective on things, you know.
You had everyone from, we had probably a half dozen LTE vendors, with solutions that go up to 30,000 plus for their base configuration, 360-degree coverage. At the high end, all the way down to you've got I think Ubiquiti had a couple announcements. I think LigoWave had some announcements for incredibly low-cost gear.
Yeah.
You had the complete gamut. You had fiber manufacturers and just a ton of variety that Tom hadn't experienced at MUMS in the past, and yeah, he did seem pretty pleased with it.
No, it was
contrast. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I suppose it's different, like with the number of streams, like the many different streams. So like where at the moment you might be giving a talk to 1,200 people, let's say in the European MUMS, or 1,300. It's much more, I suppose, it's a smaller setting, so from a speaking point of view, it's less efficient, the WISPAPalooza, because you're not having such a wide audience, but it's probably a better audience in some ways because you have 60 people who are actually interested in that topic rather than people who just come into the main auditorium and hear everyone's speeches throughout, or presentations and case studies throughout the day. So it's a different kind of format than I was used to, and it was a panel as well, so I was sharing that with Dennis Burgess. So that was it's kind of an interesting kind of setup. So you kind of presentation, and then kind of a to and fro and Q&A session with the audience. So it's a very different experience to what I was used to at the MUMS as well, just from a presentation point of view, But very enjoyable.
And for those that don't, that haven't been to either of the shows, at a MUM, there's just one line of presentations. There's one or possibly two guys, but usually one that I'm aware of. But standing up there giving their presentation for half hour, what have you. This goes on for 2 days or so, and there could be up to 1,300 people in front of you. Whereas at the WISPAPalooza, there was 1,300 people there, but there could be 4 main presentations going on that there could be 200 or 300 people in, and then there's smaller presentations going on as well, and so it's a very diverse grouping. Now at the MUMS, they tend to be a little more technical. I've been working on the WISPA guys to kind of up their technical a little bit, but like there's a whole ton on business and regulatory and other things that you're not going to find at a MUM. It's targeted towards the entire operation, and at a MUM, from an operator, you may have 1, 2, 3 guys coming from your company because that those are your core network guys. But at a WISPAPalooza, you've got sales guys and HR guys and the tech guys and the installers. Each of them are going there for completely different purposes, all at the same event.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at that because I thought it was very, my understanding, let's say, from the MUMS was a very much technical showcase or a technical presentation track, which is what the MUMS presentation lights would have. And you got the likes of Tom there as well, doing presentations. They're all very good technical presentations, and I try to match the standard. But like, in fairness, with the WISPAPalooza, I was actually quite surprised with the business content. I think it's good, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of nice to participate in the technical discussion with Dennis. And it's nice because you get, like, I suppose there may have been 100, maybe 150 people in the room, but there are people who saw what was on offer across the 4 or 6 tracks, I think. and they kind of went, oh, I'm interested in BGP, so I'll go and look at that presentation.
I also think that there's a lot more, at the MUMS it's very focused on MikroTik and the environment that surrounds it. And it's interesting at WISPAPalooza you see very little MikroTik actually. I think they could have a little bit more of a presence there. But the thing I was going to say is a lot more vendors seem to come to WISPAPalooza, and really a lot more time is spent in the general hall looking at different vendors and what they have to offer.
Absolutely.
You have a little bit of that at the MUMS, but there's not as much.
The exhibit hall is 10 times as large,
right,
than at a MUMS. So,
well, to be fair, at the European MUMS now, the exhibit halls will be significantly bigger than what you're used to in the States.
Okay.
To be fair, in terms of have a lot of vendors, but there tend to be vendors who are focused on MikroTik as opposed to the whole broad spectrum of vendors that Alex. But I do think MikroTik should have a bigger presence at the WISPAPalooza. I think it would make sense to be there, and I think it's good for both because you get the feedback, the competitive feedback. Where someone goes to Ubiquity, goes, oh, they learn something there, and they go, well, MikroTik, why aren't you doing that? And then, of course, Ubiquity get told, well, MikroTik can do this, why aren't you doing this? It's good for all the manufacturers, I think, to participate in that. But it's certainly, because it's interesting, you do see that whole, you can have it, you can kind of go around, like, for instance, I was interested in the 60 gig gear, so I certainly went around to the various 60 gig gear vendors and said, what's the story with this and what you're offering. Mike was very helpful with that, so I'll let you, like Mike was saying about what was it, the one with the $500 CP?
Oh, yeah, it's IgniteNet.
IgniteNet, that stuff was pretty good. Like, and then there was the other one where they were selling the LTE stuff, which was quite the 5 gig stuff, but not like the site.
Was it? Well, there was a few manufacturers there, but I think Telrad probably had the biggest display, biggest push.
Going back to Ubiquity a little bit, it seems like over the last few years they've had a lot of big announcements. They've got their AirVision line and the AirFiber line, and Unify. They've had so many different products and lines that they've introduced that were exciting this year, and not so much. But at the same time, in contrast, it seems like Mimosa has really jumped into the space very quickly and have come through on a lot of their promises. They're really excelling in a lot of the wireless area, and MikroTik as well has been jumping into a lot more AC gear, and they're definitely made a huge comeback with the CCR line. I know we were talking earlier about the CRS. A lot of you are using that, and also just the way that they're releasing their versions. They're trying to. It seems like they're really trying to make a big push to have stable software that's got all the features in it people are looking for.
Yeah, it definitely the MikroTik of the past year has been a different, more aggressive MikroTik, I guess you could say. Right. They're sitting kind of on their heels for a while, but they really, everybody can always do more, but they're trying to set it up. And yeah, I know that Mimosa did catch some slack for not having product out when they initially thought they were going to have product out. But they said that we have some firmware issues. We want to make sure we get them sorted out before, and so they waited, and when they shipped, they had a pretty good product. and they followed up with another one. They followed up with another one. You know, I know some people using their new licensed gear, which is you know, something that I had asked Robert Pera of Ubiquity about at their show. I asked if there was if we'd be seeing the AirFiber line come out in 11, 18, 60, 80 gig. And I don't remember his exact words now, but it was basically no. We're not going to, you know, not going to do that. That was before the other guys announced their low-cost licensed product.
Right.
So maybe his tune changed, but that was the last I got directly from Robert, was that they were not going to do anything like that.
Sometimes you need a little good competition to circle back around, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and the B11, which I was kind of started talking about that. It's on our list. It's not what most people are used to for licensed backhaul. Most people are used to, irregardless of the speed, it's symmetric, and it's, you know, it's 0.01 milliseconds latency, or, you know, some ridiculously low amount of latency end to end. And this is different. You know, this is a little higher latency. It's still lower than their B5 line. I don't remember numbers for comparison. I just remember that they were lower, and I'm not sure why or how they were lower. If it's something that that they could later implement on the B5 line, but
they did. The auto TDMA solved a lot of that. It was the TDMA period size was bottom floor for the latency for the links, and when they were able to adjust it or get rid of, no, it's the point-to-point stuff, the sync. They got rid of the sync, and you run it in that mode, then it does it as really low latency.
So are you both running the 5 and the 11?
I don't have any 11. 11 is very hard to do in my area.
Okay.
Licenses are just not there. Something else that that they've done is they, on their website, you know, their, you know, cloud design tool where you can plan out your network, and, you know, it tells you everything. They've also added a layer showing 11 gigahertz licenses in your area, and you can choose, you know, what frequencies to show on the map. The information was available before, just the FCC website was very much garbage. And very slow. This is very quick, very fast, very pretty. You know, he was. I remember Jimmy was talking to someone about, you know, people think that there's a lack of, you know, licensed, you know, spectrum available in their area, and they're, you know, usually wrong. And I, of course, chimed in and said, "What about my area? You know, being right near the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Aurora data center," and he's like, yes, Mike, there is nothing available in a lot of your area because of the high frequency traders that have built out their, you know, their massive networks. And a side note, since the last time I talked about that, I've noticed a couple of them starting to do PCNs. I think prior coordination notice or something like that, which is what the first step is you do in getting a licensed point-to-point link. A few of them have started going west out of Aurora to presumably Seattle as they're going northwest. I assume they're going up to Seattle or Oregon area to hit you know, hit the cables to go to Tokyo or in Hong Kong and whatnot. And I kind of went all over the board there, so whatever.
No, it was cool, and it was kind of cool to meet the guys at Intel Path as well. The way they were doing the frequency coordination and the spectrum auction was kind of an interesting idea that had kind of come across in our country. But like, it's pretty pretty good going. Like normally, it's kind of the guys who sell the wireless links like that would actually do the regulatory compliance stuff where we're based. But no, it seemed interested in the concept of approaching people with the 2.5 gig licenses and then kind of try and hook up the people who own licenses that don't use them with the people who want the licenses, so that was kind of cool. But what do you think of in fairness to MikroTik's streak on their release cycle is very improved in terms of their release candidate and the discipline in improving release quality. So you have your development release candidate and then you've got your current bug fix streams. It's actually a very positive development, and it seems to be something sustained and vastly improved, which is good.
Yeah, historically, I always lagged behind several versions and tested it thoroughly before, moving forward, making sure the uptime could hang in there without any issues. But I was actually pretty bold with their new cycle to actually deploy 6.3 3.3 with less hesitation.
Same here. Yeah, ditto. Absolutely. It's certainly for us, it kind of gave us a bigger level of confidence because it would have been a frustrating thing in Passware. You'd ask them, "Oh, we're having an issue with this." There'd be nothing. No, let's say with PPP, there'd be no mention of PPP changes. Not a minute. I know they did a couple of tweaks, but don't worry about it. You're like, "Well, it's on the log." But now at least it is, and that's a positive thing because it gives people then a risk assessment of whether they wanted to deploy a particular release or hold off maybe for 2 or 3 releases. Right. So it reduces the effort on the behalf of the operator, which I think is very positive.
The release list for RC30 for the 6.34 is gigantic again. Like, it seems like the RCs are always getting gigantic lists of changes, which is good.
Right.
Oh, and the dude.
Oh, the dude is not dead.
The dude is not dead. Let's not forget about the dude.
Yeah,
I like in the release notes it said reports of my death had been greatly exaggerated. That's one of the lines in the list.
Yeah,
so.
And while
I think it
I have no idea. I'm not a developer to know how much work it took to accomplish some of these things, but we were hearing for years that the dude wasn't dead, and then when they came out with their first updated version, it was just like a minor version, like it's a minor change. I'm like, that took you 3 years to do that? Like,
well, I think there were some architectural things that were different with the way our ROS was moving, and to CCR line and all that, and going 64 and that kind of thing that made the package incompatible with ROS. So that's the first thing they did was make it compatible.
Dude has always been a Windows server service,
right.
And moving it completely to Linux. We don't know what kind of frameworks MikroTik is using for Dude. We would
actually
assume...
I've heard that it actually is a Linux thing, and it's kind of encapsulated in something to make it a Windows thing. And I don't remember where I read that, but originally it was like Dude 0.1 or something. It was Linux only, if I remember correctly. So I think the framework was originally Linux. It's it runs on MikroTik, which is Linux when it's in ROS. So I get what you're saying. It seems like a Windows product, but it's definitely wrapped with something.
We had certainly features that we wanted to change from the Windows service point of view, and that it would always have to run in a system context or an administrator context. That if you try to restrict it to a non-privileged user, just stuff didn't work in Windows. And obviously, when you have a network service and you're trying to harden it for a security point of view, you want it kind of contained as a non-privileged user. But I was never able to get that working, and they said they'd look into that. So they solved that problem by
I don't think that's actually much of a problem solving, because by moving it to router as only, it actually created many problems for any serious network implementations. Like, for example, the database is now on your local MikroTik routers. You can't do any kind of replication or backup out of that, or you can't do it by any standard means, at least. And redundancy and high availability is going to be an issue. So I think MikroTik is kind of trying to, and this is of course only my personal opinion, but I think MikroTik is just trying to make the dude as another value added service, basically make the MikroTik router an all-in-one device for a more kind of a professional networking guy. So, you know, you have SMB and all that kind of stuff. And that is from a different perspective, of course, but I personally look at it like that, you know, make it a all-in-one device, have monitoring also integrated on the device, and you know, another value-added service which is MikroTik only potentially generates some revenue for MikroTik as well from device sales, but I don't think really with the current model the dude could be used as a serious NMS for any serious enterprise, you know, carrier grade, whatever network, because of backup redundancy and other issues that you run into when your monitoring solution is locked into actual hardware.
But if you use it on the CHR, let's say where you got VMware, vMotion, that might be a solution. Like I certainly, and this is my opinion, that it's the opinion of Wireless Connect. If you run a dude at a CCR, that better not be running BGP. It better not be passing traffic. That if you are going to use it, it should be on a dedicated device, as opposed to.
It's not just that, but when you are a bigger corporation or enterprise or carrier, you want to have certain workflows and you have certain standards and you have certain guidelines, etc. How to deploy databases, what you expect out of your databases. You know, even of your VMs, you are basically deploying a VM with it's a black box, complete black box for you, and you don't want your main, you know, monitoring and NMS system to be a complete black box that you cannot manage, replicate, backup, etc. with your standard workflows and tool set. So I think while it's a sidestep, I think. And that's, you know, I personally think they're moving it in a different direction than being a massive scale NMS.
No,
what do you think of?
I'd agree that. Sorry, I'd agree that they should have an data warehouse like either Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle or MySQL, or, you know, like obviously, and Thomas, you'll correct me, but there's a hell of a lot of databases supported by, let's say, NetXMS, that which is positive. So if you have, and it's kind of nice to have that option of, well, which database backend do we have DBAs for, you know, when you're doing it on an enterprise scale. But certainly from a security point of view, you certainly don't want to be running a service like the dude, which has multiple ports open.
It's not just
you want to reduce your attack surface.
Your main contact with your network, that system has.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think we've lost him a couple times.
Let me say.
Are you guys getting any audio from me right now?
No, came back. We lost you.
Now,
oh, okay, sorry.
I was going to say this is a first step for the dude. I've tinkered with it a little bit in the past, and I can definitely see that it has some advantages, but I've always run a dedicated monitoring NMS system. What I do see as a possibility, I don't know if they're going this way. I know that they said this is just the beginning, and you know, I'm sure they've got a lot of things in mind, but I could see a situation where there's an advantage to running agents in your network that report back to a master. So you're able to get a different perspective even when the device loses connectivity upstream. You're able to maintain some monitoring. So I could see where you have central storage of your data and your monitoring, that you have different agents on different routers reporting back to. And then you can still maintain replication and backup and high availability and all those things, but you're also distributing some of the workload, and you're getting a more realistic perspective of what's going on in different areas of the network. So it's possible if they're going to go that way that you can really gain a lot.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Hangouts is having some weird issues here.
Try changing wireless channels.
Are you using a Mac?
No, Windows.
I believe we have found out the first half hour of our show that wasn't recorded yet. We're waiting on Justin Miller and his Macintosh to sort out microphone issues.
Mm-hmm.
Just had to throw that in there.
And then there was me trying to get the fire started.
Right. Anyway, so I don't know where they're headed with Dude, but
No, I think it's a step.
depending on what they do with it, it has potential, right?
Absolutely. I agree with you. It is a small step. There is certainly replication of data warehousing issues that Tom has mentioned that I'd agree. I wouldn't be hugely a trafficking router just for now. That I think might lead to like obviously you're opening up a hell of a lot of services on it. But that's just me being paranoid.
Right.
That I'd certainly use it on a CCR or a CHR or on an x86 box, not on one that's actually actively trafficking mission-critical traffic, because I don't want to crash and Dude, because that can happen, let's face it, at pulling the rest of the services down with it,
Right.
At the moment, we can kind of take a hit that if the Dude goes offline for a few minutes and we have to restart the service, let's say in Windows, not a biggie. But having to restart a router that's trafficking user data, that will be obviously a significant bigger hit. But to be fair, it is a hell of a lot easier to deploy that than NetXMS, even with Tom's excellent videos. So thanks, Tom, for your videos. Still learning at NetXMS, I have to say, but it definitely the Dude is a hell of a lot easier to deploy.
Well, there is an old saying that says, the more flexible and the more just varied and the more options that a certain tool has, the higher the difficulty of usage is. And I think that's true for anything. Honestly, it's the same thing with Linux. With Linux you can do magic, but to actually learn all of it is it is what it is. It's a difficult tool, but it can accomplish so many different tasks. And the Dude is just for different target market, for different use cases, and etc.
True.
Switching topics a little bit, I'm curious if any of you have jumped into the AirFiber NxN solution at all. Anybody experiment with that?
What is that?
That's the little adapter they have that you can put on a dish and basically multiplex many AirFibers on the same antenna.
Right.
I forget the number, 6 or 8 of them, something like that. You put 8 maybe AirFibers on one dish.
It's one of those announcements where you see the picture and you're like, is this for real, or are they joking? Or
well, and then to be fair, somebody else did that first. Exalt, their licensed products. You can put 6 licensed products on one. Well, 6 licensed radios on one dish.
mm-hmm.
Now, granted, their licensed dishes are usually larger and more expensive, but I was really hoping for a bit more integrated. It seems like what it is it's just everybody's completely independent. No attempts of I was hoping there'd be some sort of okay, if they're going to go this direction, can you set one radio for strictly upload and one radio for strictly download?
Right.
Is there some sort of in this box that it's just a physical bracket. There's no electronics in it. But also is there some magic box they have that will handle the
failover and things like that.
yeah, like because in traditional bonding methods, it's very difficult to get the aggregate throughput on a small number of devices.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was hoping to be some little more effort put forth in that area. And
well, it's the problem really is that the easiest way to achieve bonding is of course with LACP, but most vendors and most equipment doesn't support any other methods that L2 other than L2 hashing. Like MikroTik, for example, you can do L3 and L4 hashing, so it's rather, when you have proper network planning and etc., it's rather easy to actually get the bonded throughput. But sadly, most vendors, switch vendors, especially wireless vendors, just don't really care to implement any other hashing than L2, and that's what makes LACP problematic with single stream or single session connections. But it's not a problem of actual LACP or the bonding itself, rather that not many vendors implement higher layer hashing algorithms.
To be fair, I haven't come across a switch vendor that doesn't do layer 3 or layer 4 hashing. But there can be. But the one thing I'd be worried about LACP and wireless links is if there's variances on latency, you get packet ordering issues, potentially.
Yeah, there was a vendor who made a big splash at a few WISPA shows, and then they since kind of got reabsorbed back into their parent company. I believe it was Performant Networks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember them.
That had their proprietary system where it never made it to a large enough scale in their own boxes to, I think, be of use to me.
The AirFlow stuff, right?
But really expensive solution, but they were trying to solve something that needed to be solved for sure.
Yeah. It's, what their box did is it was proprietary gear. You'd put it
behind all your wireless links, right?
Yeah. And what it would do is it would constantly measure the throughput capability of the wireless link in question, and I assume other performance characteristics such as latency, jitter, so on, and would shift traffic to other links to optimize aggregate network traffic potential. So that if you had a 24 gig link that was fading because of the rain, it would start to shift more of that traffic onto perhaps a higher latency but more resilient 5 gig link.
Right.
And it would just do all the magic behind the scenes. Ultimately it was expensive, and the company, the parent company, kind of reabsorbed that whole idea back into their carrier class stuff, because from what I gather, stuff like that is in use in like cellular backhaul and things like that. It's just not stuff that we can afford, so they stopped trying to sell to us. But that sounds like the cat's ass, where it it's other than being proprietary, it can use all of what's available versus whatever happens to be configured to use.
Right, which is a big struggle with wireless.
Yeah, because
your real world versus what it's configured for is always going to be fluctuating and changing in a lot of situations.
In the fixed line world, a gig is a gig. 10 gig is 10 gig. If it's not 10 gig, then it's broken, so it has to be fixed. Whereas, in the wireless space, on an AirFiber link, not picking on AirFiber, it's everybody in 24 gig. If you could be doing 750 megs 1 second, 300 megs the next, and then maybe only 25 megs a minute later because rain came in. And so you know, the standard networking technologies can't wrap their head around that concept.
We've been using a fair bit of LACP between MikroTik and TP-Links with layer 3, layer 4 hashing, as Tom was suggesting there. And that works quite well, but I haven't actually tried to do bonding on wireless links. Do many of you do LACP bonding across wireless links? I think Tom was saying he did a bit of it.
It's only an issue when you really try to bond with technologies that break up sessions, because like Tom mentioned, like a single session over multiple wireless links, it's just not a good idea because of retrans made out of order delivery, etc. But that's why I think personally LACP is actually one of the better protocols to do bonding and balancing across wireless links, because you don't actually break those sessions. You know, when you are using L3 and L4 hashing, you never actually break a single session over multiple wireless links. So even if the link quality degrades, of course it goes slower, but at least you aren't having issues with the session actually breaking down because of various, you know, issues which arise from the link quality degrading. So I personally think that LACP across wireless is actually a fairly good way of doing it, of course with the obvious limitations.
What about OSPF and eCMP?
Yeah, I've always just done OSPF and eCMP. When it comes to wireless, I haven't done LACP at all, just because in most cases you have enough traffic that's being balanced pretty well that it's not an issue. You get what you need out of OSPF, and if you combine that with BFD or something like that, it can fail over very quickly.
Yes, like for me, that's one thing that the speed of failover, of course, is much better in LACP than in OSPF if you are not using BFD, and you know,
right.
the BFD has been broken in MikroTik for quite a long time now. So I don't know what your guys' experiences with BFD, but for us it's been not happening very well. And also for me personally, the problem with doing any actually it's I guess a general problem, not related to just this, but doing any kind of a dynamic routing protocol over wireless, and especially.
Did we lose Thomas?
Looks like we lost him.
I think you guys lost me there for a sec.
We lost you, yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying that it's not just for this case for bonding, but all high volume, high traffic wireless links and doing any kind of a dynamic routing protocol over them, QoS is always going to be, and assuring that the routing protocol control packets are not lost is always a big issue over wireless. So, yeah.
I remember at some point recently there was at least one vendor. I think Mimosa was maybe one of them. I know there's at least one or two others that longer term. Some of their vision included, once some of the buzzword technologies that are out there now get a little more mature, whether it be SDN or whatnot, that would be a good avenue for maximization of a network. I know there's I grimace or sigh anytime I hear someone talking about that kind of stuff, as in here and now, and maybe for some people it is, but I think once we can get to the point where where we have that more intelligent network that can move individual flows from one path through a network to another path through a network. I think that's kind of where we want to be. Just it'll take some time for us to get there, both in equipment capability, operator capability, to know that they want it, know how to configure it. The whole ecosystem needs to evolve, but I think that's maybe a 5-year goal is to get something like that going.
It'd be nice that, like some MikroTik, where they have the layer 2, like if you use layer 2 like MikroTik or Ubiquiti, I'm not so sure on the AirFibers because we don't really use them, but on the MikroTik ones we always use them rooted because we like the fact that if an interface goes down, you get your LSA straight away rather than just relying on a layer 2 path and one router knowing that the link is down, the other one having to wait. It doesn't get any hello packets or so that's where like the LLF link loss forwarding would be a nice feature to have on any device that's, let's say, layer 2, so that, let's say, your layer 2 routers on either side, like your Cloud Core or your x86 router on either side, that they actually get a quick update on the status of the wireless link between the 2 points.
Ubiquiti is really good about doing that on the AirFiber line.
You can do that on the AirFibers, yeah.
Right.
And a lot.
Well, and then
yeah,
the ultimate goal, the ultimate goal isn't to drop the network. I mean, it's better now than the alternative of waiting for OSPF or whatever to time out. With the AirFibers, and most licensed platforms, you can configure it to drop the Ethernet interface when the wireless drops. But that's kind of a baby step, and I think the overall goal is that the wireless devices feed information into the network control platform, where the wireless device is saying, okay, my capacity is this, my quality is this, my quality is degrading, and then the network control platform moves the data if necessary before the link drops, or if the router dies, it would immediately, or if the radio dies, it would know that it has died, and cohesively through the whole network move the data somewhere else, several hops away.
Similar to how we talked about the Performant platform and how it handles traffic.
Yeah, except this was.
There should be something built into your network hardware already to handle that.
I think we'll have to wait till that's available in Star Wars before comes to stream 10 years growth.
I mean, like, I know that stuff kind of exists in the data center space currently. I know for the big guys, it's starting to come out into the WAN space, and I believe it was Mimosa that said that they would support OpenFlow and perhaps something else. So if you took the time to configure your Open Daylight controller to handle what the information that the Mimosa link provided, you can make those decisions. It's still a pie in the sky, years down the road thing, but
because like the OpenFlow is on MikroTik isn't scaling very well at the moment. Traffic engineering is working in our network. There's some issues like failover. That might be up to me. Some issues there with my configuration, but I think traffic engineering is, let's say, the carrier way of doing it. Let's say, the pure network services company would be traffic engineering, a well-architected traffic engineering setup like with MPLS. Certainly, Google and all them are doing OpenFlow on big spec-off hardware like servers with SDN and custom Juniper gear and stuff like that. But
Actually,
But
I
theirs is
think
very
Google
bespoke.
has their own proprietary protocol for SDN. I don't have any sources for that, but from what I remember, they are doing completely their own thing.
Yeah, no, but I think they contract with the likes of, like, for the big heavy iron stuff, they'll actually say, Juniper or Cisco, we want this, but we don't want your iOS. We want them to write our own stuff for it. Certainly, but I don't know if they're using OpenFlow. Definitely, they're not using, but they're using some SDN of some sort. But theirs is very narrow focused. You know what I mean? They just have to move terabits of data over a few links. It sounds like, but you know what I mean? They've probably an ideal networking point of view, that they have reliable latency between points. They have huge bandwidth, but they're, you know what I mean? But it's a different kind of setup to what, let's say, a carrier or a wireless ISP has to deal with in terms of variance in quality and latency across links. Like, we have to solve a lot of problems that they don't have. You know what I mean? And I don't know if OpenFlow will do that for us, because it seems like a load of bollocks. Sorry.
So, Mike, what about that Cambium stuff?
I think some of our brothers are getting bored with the topic and looking at our list of things to talk about. Yeah, I've had Cambium items on our list for probably 2 shows now. We just never get to them.
They had a pretty big presence at WISPAPalooza.
Yeah, Cambium has, for those that don't know, Cambium does have a few different product lines. Originally, they were the Motorola Canopy multi-point platform, which then later included the Orthogon point-to-point platform that Motorola bought when Motorola shit the bed and started selling off anything that was useful to anyone. You know, this whole WISP platform spun out to a new company, Cambium, and they still develop the you know, the Canopy series, which I have little interest in because it's ungodly expensive. It's really good, but ungodly expensive, so I don't want it. But they came out with the ePMP line, Atheros-based, much like Ubiquiti, Microtik, Insert, a couple dozen other vendors here. Only they seem to be able to do a lot more with it than anybody else. They've got a sync platform that works pretty well, and everyone has assumed when it came out that the Cambium ePMP sync, which is the cheap platform, you know, that it would coexist with their existing platform. It didn't. It was really a different syncing system. It was a 5 millisecond frame, whereas the other was a 2.5 millisecond frame. Well, just this past fall, they have come out with a 2.5 millisecond frame size for their, you know, sync systems. You know, it can still operate in an auto mode similar to Ubiquiti or Microtik or anybody else, but in the sync systems, you set a fixed upload download, 90, 10, 25, you know, 75, whatever the options are. I can't remember. And the benefit of the reduced frame size is that latency goes down simply because everything is done more quickly from a time perspective, maybe not throughput. But then also now with the 2.5, it can coexist with the original Canopy line. They still have some homework to do, perhaps on both platforms, to make it work with the more modern of the Canopy platforms. But it's a big deal for me because most of the operators in my area operate Canopy. You know, but I touch at least there's been some acquisitions and whatnot. So at least 11 other WISPs, and most of them use Canopy, and thus therefore we're reduced to RF engineering to coexist with each other. Whereas with the synced platforms, you can be in the same tower, the same channels, and it'll work. Insert some definition for work. There's a couple caveats as far as things that see each other, but the prime purpose of the sync is to reduce the access points hearing each other talking, or hearing the clients, or the clients hearing each other talking. Everybody talks at the same time, everybody listens at the same time. Well, this new 2.5 milliseconds is on the way to making that more cooperable, high performance. Some other things that they've done past few months, they come out with an ePTP mode, which reduced the latency even further, non-syncable, but for the longest time it wasn't available in DFS frequencies. I assume due to some of the technicalities and how the band operates. There's some listen before talk requirements, things like that. They have that now. You still can't yet sync DFS. Still can't sync the ePTP. So if you want a synced backhaul platform, you'll still have to go with an AirFiber or a Mimosa or things like that if you want synced, which everybody should. It makes your life a hell of a lot easier. But blah blah blah. What else was on this list? They're seeing Maestro.
ICANN?
Yep, sure. What do you got?
Yeah, so it was at ICANN the week after. Literally, I got in Dublin, had a shower in the airport, and went straight to the ICANN conference. It was in Dublin, ICANN 54, I think. So it was hosted by the local internet exchange INEX and
I've heard of those guys.
Data center company in Ireland called Black Knight. So the two of them hosted or invited ICANN to have their meeting in the conference centre of Dublin. It's actually kind of cool. It was huge. Like, I think it was about 2,000 delegates, but from all sorts of countries, and they had translation services. So, like, I arrived into one meeting, it was about internet exchanges in South America, and my good friend Warner Maya was like, one of his friends was there, who was responsible for exchanges in Argentina and setting up exchanges in Argentina, and they were just talking about internet exchanges reducing costs and obviously reducing cyber espionage and all that type of stuff. But it was deadly because they were all like flipping between Spanish and English, and you just had this earpiece. So it was kind of like the UN kind of mad stuff where everyone was wearing you had lads in their booth like kind of translating from various different languages. So
was there somebody there to translate? Was there somebody there to translate whatever it is that you're speaking to English?
Ooh, listen here. Most of us don't need subtitles for people who speak English. Not like, so I'm just that's a dig at American TV, where someone with an English accent gets a subtitle, you're like, what the sorry. Anyway, moving swiftly on, there's a variance of accents across your great country, so I'm just, you got the deep south accent and then the sophisticated north. I just like to tell the people of the deep south, you lost the war, get over it. Moving swiftly on, that's the
war of
northern aggression,
right?
What?
Nothing.
No, okay, moving swiftly on. Anyway, no, but like the ICANN, so it's basically the guys who run the DNS and the internet. So it's very politically charged. There was the first day in particular. There was some kind of interesting tracks there. There was the Swedish Nick, guys who were responsible for Bird that to help develop Bird and all that, and they were developing a low-cost router that could do 1.5 gigabits per second throughput with full BGP table, an ARM-based device, and their target price was around 128 euros for the actual board. So it was interesting that they had kind of some cool software that would like analyze the traffic. So it was kind of for end devices, but they would analyze traffic coming from the LAN. So some cool technical tracks, but you have a lot of policy stuff. So you've got the whole lawyers from all the recording companies say, you know, oh, please stop this flux of the poor artists who can't get a swimming pool the following day, every day, because people are pirating music. And then you've got guys who are the police saying, we need to monitor stuff more, and you need to shut down adult content more. And so you got the content police, then you got the people who are saying you can't censor the internet, and then you've got the technical guys going, look, what the law enforcement guys want and the lawyers want is not workable. So it's a whole political mess. Like, it's kind of interesting to be a part of it, like, and look. But there was a lot of open sessions. There was some closed sessions that were mysterious. So the guys who, like, there's these different caucuses, if you can imagine. So there's governance, then there's ones talking about copyright, and they're all different tracks. Like, there was I'd say about 8 to 10 different tracks, but they're actually all recorded, so you can actually see the videos, the audio. In some of the sessions where it was only audio, but you can actually get them. If you go to ICANN 54, Google it, you'll actually see presentations, and you'll actually see some contributions that I made. Other people mightn't say they were contributions. They might have said that I was lowering the tone, but don't mind them, they're just haters. But it was interesting. There was people talking about the whole concept of net neutrality, and how, let's say, like Facebook want to do a version of the internet for free for India, you know, but basically it'd be the internet according to Facebook, as in, you know, Facebook will be free, but you'd have to pay to look at other sites, stuff like that. So I was kind of saying, well, maybe like a public broadcast type. So there's some interesting concepts there, but you have it's a very political forum. You had a lot of people argue over ICANN's transparency, and so people were saying you need to be more transparent about how you allow it to be Congress. So there's quite a big American theme, obviously, because ICANN is actually based in California, and it's actually governed according to the law of in the state of California. And obviously they're trying to move it into kind of a more international, multi-stakeholder model. And it's kind of it's surreal, but it was kind of the most political conference I was at, in terms that you have a lot of government people there. And they, like, you got one person saying how to make social media accessible in countries that maybe have repressive regimes, and then you've got the government ministers of the repressive regimes going, how do we stop what they're trying to do? And they're kind of asking techies. So you have these kind of, at one stage you're talking to a lawyer, the next minute you're talking to a guy who kind of was basically responsible for building ARPANET. So some really interesting. I met a really cool guy from the Internet Archive, actually is running the Internet Archive. So yeah, and then you've got mere mortals like myself who have a small wireless ISP and does a small bit of consulting around the place. So it was certainly interesting. So if it's, I don't know if I travel halfway across the world for it, but you can actually watch it free. You can participate online for free. You just register. Once you register before the event, it's free to attend. And you can listen. Like there was one session I sat in on, and it was basically about I think transfer of stewardship of IANA. And I remember the lads were talking for 2 hours about a single sentence, and the wording, like the one was saying will should be must, and then there was arguments, well, it should be will or shall, and other people saying no, it should be must, and the guys were saying, look, we've been talking about this for months, it's going to be as it is. You know, but you literally, that type of legalistic analysis of, like, this is what we're releasing as the, you know, agreement at the end of this conference, and you've literally lads going with a fine tooth comb, and in that particular room there was 7 languages available. Like, it was quite impressive. Like, you had Japanese, you had Chinese, I think there was French, Portuguese, Spanish, and obviously English. And everyone just having an earpiece when people were changing language. And I have to say, it was very professionally laid out. It was in the conference centre, which cost about 1.2 billion of the Irish government. Back when we thought we were rich, then we realised we just borrowed the money from someone, and we. But it was a pretty cool conference centre. Like, there was some cool statistics that Michaela Neelan from Blacklight, who's been a long-time member, he's been always working, like, representing kind of his industry and representatives, his own interests, but trying to make, let's say, likes of lawyers and police understand the issues that that network operators would have, and that that their demands of law enforcement or government policies or censorship, and then you've got your civil liberties people who say censorship's bad, and so you have all these people in the same room. So you can imagine there's a fair few arguments, and there's different tracks. Like, I tried to go to the more technical of the security tracks, and they were quite interesting, I have to say. So definitely, if it's nearby, you should go to it, but you certainly should just look at it. ICANN. When the next event, I think the next event is on there in March, but you can actually participate online. They use Adobe, I forget the name of it, but it's the virtual conferencing suite, and you can chat and ask questions online. They had an open mic at their board meeting or before, like, kind of their plenary session. It's kind of cool, and any randomer like myself could ask questions, which I did because I love doing that. But it was certainly, but it's kind of like the guys who run the root servers, so they talk about, it was actually a really cool project, just on a technical thing. The .co.uk, are basically people who operate the .co.uk root servers, developed this product called Turing, and what they do is they analyze all the DNS requests coming to the .co.uk servers, and they can actually detect attacks and actually identify trends on the network. It's really, really cool. And one of the cool things about it was, you should actually just see it. If you go to Turing, google.co.uk, Turing, as named after the guy who invented the computer, mechanical computer, or electromechanical computer. But it was pretty cool. Like, they had these dot plots. They could determine, like, they were actually analyzing every request to the UK servers. They were saying, like, BBC.co.uk always gets hammered, and various different things that you could just see from, popular sites. They were saying that it always gets hammered from outside the UK and not within, obviously. So certain countries that may not like the UK tend to hit them hard, which shall remain nameless. But, like, there was some cool stuff like that. There was guys just talking about how the DNS works, that there's some issues with privacy in terms of how, when you do a DNS request at the moment, you actually send the full host name to the root servers to find out what's the DNS server for, so the root servers. Then you go to the country level domain with the full host name, and then you go to the name server and it actually just shows how you actually send more information to all the different DNS servers than actually what you need. Like, what you should really do is, if you're going to some host.ie, you should just say, where's the .ie servers? And then when you're going to the .ie servers, what's the top level domain? That kind of way. And what's the connect? And then ask the DNS servers for wireless connect, what's the specific host you want? That kind of way, to improve privacy on the internet. So there was some interesting concepts like that. But a lot of political stuff. But definitely it's an experience, I will say that. It was much more on a bigger scale, and obviously with government, and certainly higher budget than any of the other conferences I've been at. But just, translators, and there was good parties afterwards as well, which is always nice.
Yeah,
for networking, of course.
Yeah, I can only assume that that a conference put on by government types for government types is going to be expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was to be fair, it was I think IDEX and Blacklight have basically put a significant portion of the bill for that. I would, so, but it was nice to have all the delegates from the different countries there in Ireland, and it was nice to kind of participate. It was certainly an interesting. It was well worth experiencing. So if it's nearby ever, you should go to one. I went for the full 4 days. There was actually a couple of days beforehand that I missed because it was on Vegas, but it's certainly the first official public day. There's a load of private days, but there's the first official public day is kind of like your technical day. And then they have kind of cool meetings, which I'd love to be a fly on the wall for, where the root server operators discuss technical and security issues. So the guys who are running the biggest DNS servers on the internet, and the most important and most critical, you've got all those guys in the same room talking about it, and you just go, man, I want to be in that room. But they're closed sessions, but they'd be certainly very interesting. But I understand they don't want randomers like me kind of coming up and go, well, can you do this? But certainly it'd be nice to just observe these legends in operation. But there were some serious guys who were there a long, long time. Like there was one guy who was just finished up at the board of directors. He was an American fella, and he was responsible for setting up LACNIC, helping that get set up like a regional. So you got some serious heavy hitters there. There's no doubt about it. So it's kind of interesting just to even have a cup of tea. I chatted with a guy who works for Red Hat who developed the Free Swan project. So it's kind of nice to meet people like that that you might never otherwise meet at the other conferences. So it was kind of cool, definitely. So what was Nanog like, or did you already talk about that, Mick?
We haven't talked about that yet.
But,
you already did that later.
Oh, but it's definitely a bit different tune than the WISPA type shows that I've been to. Justin.
Yeah, I've been to one.
Yeah, I'd be sure I wasn't still muted. And then I think Greg's been to one that was done by his area. Nanog is mostly
carriers.
Yeah, carriers and other big scale internet type stuff, whether it's R&E networks or universities or things like that.
A lot of big enterprises too, right?
Yeah. There was companies there that you can't buy a service from that's related to telecom whatsoever. And they were there as attendees to learn, because it's 3 or 4 days. Other than the person-to-person networking, there's a lot of good presentations about everything, ranging from upcoming not yet public internet technologies to how to do something unique with this Cisco whatever platform, and it's just everything is recorded. You can get these slides in PDF form and watch the videos on their YouTube, right on their website, nanog.org. I've noticed that oftentimes when somebody asks how to do something and it's not something specific to a particular vendor, they'll get linked to a Nanog presentation on whatever the topic is that they're looking for, and it's probably the longest running networking related conference that there is. I think I was at Nanog 65.
This
right
year's
now,
66, right?
Pardon?
The upcoming one is 66, right?
Yeah. The 66 comes after 65. But no, it's in San Diego, I believe. But yeah, but they've got I think they do about 3 a year, so that puts it at being over 20 years old. I'm not sure how regular they were back in the day. It's only recently become its own organization as well. NANOG used to be ran by Merit, which is the state of Michigan's kind of research and education network. Merit also Merit's done a lot of things for the internet community. Merit runs the RADB route registry.
Right.
Seems to be the most universal one. Merit, you know, they did all the NANOG stuff before NANOG was. I think they did a lot of the like Aaron type stuff. I think way back in the day. They've developed, I think, route servers, and they've developed all kinds of things that are in use on the internet today, or were critically important at the time. But yeah, there's just, I mean, I spent most of the time actually in the hallways talking with other operators, whether it be you know, CDNs or you know, other types of networks that I was you know, interested in peering with or joining my exchange. But you know, there's a few presentations that I saw that were kind of, you know, interesting. I've since followed up with those guys, and then I've actually gone back and watched the presentation that they gave. It's pretty interesting software. Kentic was one of them, and Kentic, they have some sort of can't do more than one thing at a time. They've got a kind of a cloud-based flow management system. When I first heard about it, I wasn't all that interested based upon there's cloud-based and whatever else. But actually, when I looked at it more, it sounds pretty awesome. Because they'll keep all of your data, which could be bad if you're, you know, privacy concerns. But they also they take flows and BGP information from you and all other providers that they're working with to assess you know, DDoS potentials that are happening. They don't have any mitigation strategies for DDoS. You know, they're all about, you know, information gathering and presentation, but just the format that they show things in. What I really liked was some of the interfaces where they will present to you where your traffic is going and how it's getting there based upon ASs, and it will show you multiple hops along the way, and it'll show you, you know, most of your traffic is going to upstream A of yours, but then from there it's going over to this other carrier, and so you might want to go talk to that other carrier, and it will show you that information for several hops, and to allow you to optimize your transit purchasing or your peering opportunities.
Are you only able to gather that information if other carriers are participating?
No, I believe most of the cloudiness is in the DDoS space, and I haven't actually had an official presentation with them. I've just kind of viewed what they've seen. Been too busy to follow up and actually have the conversation. But I do believe that with the flow data and with the BGP routes, they're able to. It's obviously not perfect because, you know, someone could be moving traffic somewhere else, but somehow they're able to gather that information or make those assumptions.
Probably looks up the routes in the routing table, gathers the AS, and then uses AS path information to kind of estimate how much traffic is going to different networks?
Yeah, I assume that that's what it does, and just there's assumptions there in that someone else doesn't have some routing policy that is not just following standard BGP logic, but then again that would require you to know someone else's routing policy, and they're probably not going to tell you that.
Right.
And then you got all that layer 2 redirection, and like the kind of that it looks like a single hop, but it's routed through a number of different countries on MPLS.
Yeah, but it's they have a ton of presentations. Actually, they did one at NetNong. They were all about like the next generation of flow data, going beyond Netflix and SFlow into, I'm not even up to date for sure what they are, IP fix or something like that, and combining that flow data with your Apache logs, with your FTP logs, and to really delve into the information that you may be missing by looking at each of these tools separately.
Cool.
And if you want more, to go talk to those guys. I don't know enough about them to, I haven't used it. I haven't had a live demo. But it just sounds really cool. That's why I want to talk to them.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to circle back on that next time, and if you've talked to them, get a little more information.
But let's see here. How are we? I don't even know how long we've been doing this now.
Wrap it up.
Is there a timer on here? Brad, been doing this for what, like probably an hour and a half, 2 hours now?
Yeah, a couple hours. I think we started a little late, but.
But is there anything else that we should touch on before we wrap things up?
We had a laundry list of things.
Yeah, I believe if we went through our entire our backlog of things to talk about, we would probably be
here a couple days.
Midnight. Well, midnight my time. It's already midnight.
We can just run a 24-hour show and have everybody in their different time zones take over.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know that. We have talked about doing some other types of formats for the show. Give us some feedback on those guys, where instead of, because obviously it doesn't work very well for us to try to have 3, 4, 5, 6 guys at a time from a scheduling perspective, from a topics perspective. I think what Greg and I talked about in our chat one day, well, with everybody else, but I don't think we were the ones that were mainly talking, was to was to kind of, once we get caught up, assuming that we do get caught up with our things we want to talk about, that we have some smaller sessions. Perhaps Alex and Tomas wanted to have a chat about whatever issues were going on with something, and they may talk for a half hour, 45 minutes, and post that video. Because it's a lot easier to get 2 of us or 3 of us to talk at a time versus 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And so let us know what you guys think. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys are thinking, if you're watching this still, more content the better, but let us know what you think. I guess both you viewers and you guys presenting as well, in our chat, let us know what you think. Probably a couple weeks we'll have another one so we can catch up on our list. Still, looking at our list, we have at least a dozen, 2 dozen things to talk about, if not more, and we only talked about 4 in this chat, so lots of room to talk about things yet. So So you guys think this is a good point to stop, kind of wrap things up? Miss anything that's important?
Happy New Year.
You guys a new year? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
That I believe in our chat we had kind of a circle going through of people wishing each other Happy New Year as they hit Happy New Year. We've got a pretty diversified time zone grouping here. Yeah, well, and I guess Christmas as well. It's been, our last show was Merry Christmas and Thanksgiving, and well, which isn't so much celebrated by too many of you international types, but yeah, but I've run out of this check. But all right, well, it's I guess Greg normally does kind of a last tour of what people are going to be doing interesting coming up, so I guess we'll go through that. In the Google chosen left to right, we have Alex. What are your next couple weeks? Are you doing anything that's worth talking about?
Just following up on what I was talking about earlier, just continuing on the Corporal 8021X, doing GRE, hopefully get MikroTik on the line and figure out the driver issue there and on the IPsec. So it's on my schedule.
Yeah. And Mr. Miller, you doing anything exciting?
Implementing a new help desk system, ticketing system, support center. We're moving away from desk. So.
Fun. Yet I use just kind of whatever's WISPMon has a ticketing system built in, as does my outsourced phone support. They have a ticketing system, and it's not that I chose either of those ticketing systems because of their awesomeness, that it's just that it's there and integrates with other things that I have, so that's why I use them.
Which one are you moving away from, Justin, and why?
We're moving away from desk because the reports for it are horrible. You can't really gather any. No, desk.com. It's a Salesforce thing.
Oh, all right.
We didn't choose Zendesk because Desk was closely associated with Salesforce, and Salesforce is supposedly pretty good, but we found out Desk is just not all it's cracked up to be. So we're moving to Manage Engine Support Center Plus and getting that implemented. So.
Historically, I've used WHMCS, which is a nice way of integrating the help desk and the billing system in one, but I know a lot of people that use Zendesk.
Yeah,
we're looking for something more than a glorified email client that has timesheets and PO system and all that kind of stuff. So we need something a little bit more feature-rich than, especially Desk and Zendesk and all that. So
makes sense.
That in all of my businesses that I'm involved with, paying the people working appears to be optional. So we're not too worried about keeping track of that. Yeah, but for the IX we use Zendesk there. But Mr. Smith, who seems to be hiding from the camera here, which the fire is much more attractive than you. But
it's a fire in my heart for you.
Aww. What are you doing the next couple of weeks that's people would want to know?
We kind of retooling our network, kind of revamping our MPLS and revamping our core, kind of take on a few bigger clients, kind of doing. So that's kind of kept me busy before Christmas, and I was kind of playing catch up over Christmas, just chilling out. So I think it'll be kind of a bit more on the MPLS side of things, and just increasing capacity at the core and kind of aggregation points of our network. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and I'll probably be at that for quite some time. Nothing else really, just a bit of nerding, trying to work out what presentation I will do next. And will I be the one-trick pony that just talks about BGP again, or will I talk about something new?
I believe that's a reference to Mr. Miller there.
Well, no, but I suppose there is a point in time, or if I do talk about it, it might be just in a totally different theme, like in terms of metrics and stuff like that, as opposed to just
Recycle a smaller percentage.
Basically, I'll hope to be 0% recycled, apart from maybe the initial slide.
0%, so you won't be there. That sounds like a good start.
I promise I won't repeat any jokes.
All right.
All right, and Mr. Tomas, other than or say, what will you be doing interesting that we will understand? Or is he? Oh, yeah, he is there. I see him moving. Is he still muted?
I think I dropped out just in the right time to not hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so what are you doing the next couple of weeks that is interesting that we will understand? Oh, he may have dropped out again.
So I've actually been doing quite a bit of studying into proper system architecture and the proper ways how to, actually do networking and IT and operations in general the proper way. I have some training at a few bigger enterprises.
Looks like he's dropped out and... Oh, there we go. Oh, he's back.
Somebody already told him to change channels, right?
You tried turning it on and off again.
Okay, so where did it cut me off?
You were doing some training?
Yeah, system architecture, how you're supposed to do things.
Oh, right. Basically, I am doing some training at a few corporations, which is supposed to be about, of course, system architecture and the general automation of systems and Puppet and similar. So you know what? I think I just give up because Hangouts just doesn't want to play with me today.
Well, I think we get the gist of it. It's all doing things that we should be doing, but few of us ever do because we're not as smart or responsible as you.
Well, Mike, you want to let us know what you've been up to, what you're doing, and then wrap us up?
I hope to the next couple of weeks actually finish some of the fiber that I've got. 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, I completed the conduit ring on the home farm. So then we'll be able to put in my diverse fiber to the other side of the farm. Then I'll be able to have a complete physically redundant fiber ring on the farm going from my house, which has all of my servers and stuff, to my main tower for this part of my network anyway. And also doing something similar at my brother's new place. Yeah, that's chasing down a bunch of new school clients that I'm trying to get. The carriers seem to be taking their time and getting back the circuit quotes. I could probably talk for 20 minutes about things I'm doing the next couple of weeks, and none of it is exciting to any of you guys. And as always, if some of our viewers are doing anything interesting, let us know. Probably on our Facebook, because it will take Greg, I'm guessing, 5 or 6 months to post this to the website. So yeah, let us know. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Goodbye.
See you guys.